Hello guys, this is Static Wave, and I'm going to show you guys what I run for my subclass build in this new update. I'm currently on the ESO build editor website because my game account has been permanently banned. I have no way to access the game right now, so this is the only way for me to show you guys what I have for this build. So without further ado, let's get into the build. We are a sword, claw, blade. We're using skills from sword, claw, and blade. All of them are offensive skill lines, so we have no defensive or sustain skills. We're a Khajiit. Khajiit is the best race for this setup because we're stacking a lot of crit damage and crit chance. And Khajiit just works so well with how we stack damage. You can also be an Orc, Imperial, or Dark Elf. But for me, Khajiit is the best option. For our Mundus, we're using Shadow. Obviously, we're stacking crit damage, so Shadow is the best choice here. But Thief is also a great option because the more you stack, the more crit chance you stack, the more you crit, which means your DPS is going to be higher, and your healing is going to be higher as well. But yeah, for our vamp, we're stage 3. Some people dropped Vampire in this update, but personally, I think Vamp 3 is still very beneficial. I noticed a difference in mitigation right away when I dropped Vamp 3. So Vamp 3 is gonna help you tank through damage when you're at low health. Um, you know, burst it doesn't really do well against burst, but when you're in execute phase, that extra mitigation comes in clutch. So, stage 3. For attributes, we're using 20 points, 24 points in health, and 40 points in stam. You want to be over 30k health for this setup, just because 30k health is the I don't know why, but 30k is the bare minimum. Like pretty much every build I've seen have at least 30k health. So I guess 30k health is the bare minimum standard. But yeah, 30k health, the rest into stam for the extra damage and healing. For the items, we're running basically the same sets as our pure sword build. We have Bloodspawn for our monster set. We have Trainee for the 1-piece, 5-piece Essence Thief on the front bar, and Rallying Cry on the back bar. This patch, we're using the Monomyth Reforged Mythic. This is a really strong mythic, probably the strongest right now for PvP. It gives you Major Force and Minor Berserk on the front bar, and when you swap to back bar, you get Major Protection and Minor Vitality. So gives you two major buffs that are really, really hard to get. And the Major Force buff just works so well with this build because we're stacking crit chance and crit damage. Really strong mythic. You should get this if you have the money. If you want to spend $50 for this new update, you should get this mythic. It's not gonna it's not gonna make you stronger by a huge margin, but from a min-maxing standpoint, it's a must-have. If you don't have this mythic, you can also use Markin or Saints of the Seducer. Those are really strong mythics as well. Not as strong as this one, obviously, but very strong for a competitive build. We are using 5 medium, so we're kind of a swishy build. Not swishy if you look at the stats, the defensive stats, but we're in 5 medium just for that, just for the extra crit damage and quick healing. And then we have one heavy for the chest and then 1 light for the belt. For the weapons, we're using maces. I'm not using axes because if you go too much into crit damage, you lose pen. So you want to get pen back somehow, and I got back pen. I got pen from using maces. And then on the back bar, I have the ice staff to block. Um, I don't use sword and board because on this build, you you want to use elemental susceptibility. This is basically free. It works really well with crit surge. It gives you a minor brittle as well, and minor brittle is going to give you an extra 10% crit damage. So this is very valuable. I think this is better for this build than sword and board. For the traits, as you can see, 6 impen and 1 reinforce on the chest. 3 protective. I always run protective for my jewelry traits because protective is the best trait for Citadel. You need tankiness in Citadel, and protective will give you just that. Infuse is good, but the extra damage is not as good as the 1k armor. And I mean, you can see, even though I'm in 5 medium, with Blood Spawn procs, I'm at 34k resistances. And that's thanks to having protective. And then on the back bar, defending with, defending Ice Staff. And then on the front bar, we have Nerdhorn and Sharp. For the enchants, I have Prismatic on the body pieces. Triple regen glyphs. I don't use weapon damage glyphs because I already have a lot of damage in this build. The biggest issue with this build right now is sustain because you don't have a single sustain skill. So you need to use sustain glyphs, just to have that high recovery, so you can spam skills while doing the damage and while in a fight. If you use weapon damage glyphs, your sustain will be kind of iffy. So sustain glyphs ended up being better for me for Cyrano fights because when you're fighting multiple people, the damage is not that great. The damage from glyphs is not gonna help you, but the sustain will. And then we have the Berserker enchant on the back bar for the extra damage, and on the front bar doesn't really matter. I usually use poisons for my front bar, so um, probably use poisons. Escapist poisons is the best option if you want to use that. Otherwise, double damage poison will also work. Yeah, so let's get into the skills. We're using Adric Spear from the Templar line, Assassination from the Nightblade line, and Stormcalling from the Sword line. As you can see, we have three offensive skill lines. We practically have no defensive passives. Well, I mean, we have one, but this is pure damage. Everything here you see is damage. So yeah, that's why I said I'm running 3. That's why I said I have to stack a lot into recovery. I forgot to say the food is Orzorga. But yeah, I have so much into damage that I can afford to go a little bit tankier, and I can afford to go with sustain glyphs. But yeah, the thought process behind choosing these skill lines is because of this. This is a crit damage build. So when you go with Adric Spear, you get 12% crit damage, and then you add another 10% from the assassination skill line. So that right there, you're getting 22% crit damage just from having these 2 skill lines. This is why you see my crit damage being so high. We just have a lot of crit damage, and then crit chance we get that from using assassination. So we have both high crit damage and crit chance. And then for these passives, Burning Light. Burning Light is going to give you extra pressure when you're doing damage, and this passive works really well with how we stack damage. So we have 2 sources of burst damage and 3 sources of dot pressure. So we have a balance. Offensive rotation. We have a decent amount of burst damage and a decent amount of dot pressure. and these dots will also help you proc burning light a lot faster. And then storm calling is gonna be your utility slash damage skill line. All these passives give you damage. Energize buffs your surprise attack damage. Amplitude buffs your burst and your dot pressure. An expert mage gives you 200 weapon damage when you slot crit surge and hurricane on front bar. And this weapon damage also gets buffed by Balanced Warrior, which gives you 6% weapon damage, spell damage, and armor. And by the way, the armor buff. We also buffed protective. So you can see we get a lot of armor in this build. Um, Javelin. I use Javelin instead of Streak because I play with high ping, and Streak is a little bit difficult for me to land with high ping. But Javelin is very easy to land, and Javelin it just has that really weird break free lag, so that when you get hit by Javelin, it takes a little bit longer to break free out of. So that allows you to land your combo a lot more reliably. And I use Crescent Sweep instead of Incap because I think Incap is only great in duels. Incap, first of all, is a single target ultimate. It can also be dodged or blocked. So if you're fighting 3 people and you incap one person, you're just gonna do 20% more damage to that one person. And if he roll dodges and you miss, then you just wasted your ult. But if you use Crescent, right? If you use this, you're gonna hit 3 people if they're within 8 meters. And even if they roll dodge, they'll still get hit because it's an AoE ult. And the dot also goes through the roll dodges. So it has an AoE damage, initial damage, and an AoE dot. That also cannot be cleansed because it's a self-target AoE. It's a self-centered AoE, so you cannot cleanse this. So this build is very effective against Templars that sit inside Rune and Ritual, or any Templars that spam cleanse, because the only all your dots are practically AoE dots that cannot be cleansed. So as you can see right here, Quick Cloak, Hurricane, and Crescent. So if they try to spam cleanse, it's useless. They're still gonna take damage. So that is why I choose Crescent instead of Incap. But for duels, you can go Incap. Incap is a great ult. Not saying that Incap is bad, it's just not suitable for pseudo purposes. And yeah, Crit Surge. Crit Surge is an amazing skill, gives you brutality, gives you healing when you're going on the offense. And it works so well with Assassination skill line because the higher your crit chance, the more you can proc Crit Surge, which also means more healing. And since you're stacking 3 sources of AoE damage, that will also buff your Crit Surge proc rate as well. So in this setup, even though I don't have restoring light healing, I can still heal up to 4.5k damage because of Crit Surge and Assassination. So it's really strong. It's really strong as an offensive healing skill. And then this empty slot is for Healing Soul. For some reason, this editor doesn't have it right here. As you can see, this slot should be for Healing Soul. For Healing Soul, you want to have the Druid Resemblance or whatever script and Major Vitality. So on your back bar, with this method, you'll have Major Protection, Major Vitality, and Minor Vitality. So you have a lot of damage mitigation and a lot of healing buffs. And combine that with your crit chance and your crit healing, as you can see, 91%, your heals will be through the roof. This is why I have so much healing in this build, even though I only have, 3 healing skills. It's due to the fact that I have 91% crit healing, a lot of crit, weapon crit. This should be like this should be like 47%, by the way. Editor is bugged. But yeah, I have a lot of crit healing. I have a lot of crit chance, and I have major vitality and minor vitality as well. So my healing is cracked. And yeah, I mean, not much else to say. The stats here are they're bugged, so I don't know why Rally Cry doesn't show up, but you should have this much crit resist. And for the weapon damage, fully buff, you should have around 5.7k. So that's good enough. For crit chance, you should have about 47% if you use Shadow. So your stats are great. Don't have to worry about that. For CP, I'm using Fighting Finesse, Resilience, Ironclad, and Duelist Rebuff. For the recipe, I use Pain's Refuge, Sustain My Suffering, Survival Instincts, and Fortified. So pretty standard CP for Pseudo. So yeah, this is what I have for my build. I posted a gameplay clip. You guys probably saw it. You guys probably saw it a while ago. But this is what I used for that clip. I think this build is great. There's a lot of damage. You can kill like 99% of people in this game. The only downside I'd say is your sustain is pretty rough, and not because your recovery isn't enough. I mean, you have like 2.5k regen fully buffed. By the way, I forgot to say you want to use weapon crit pots for this, because that's the only way for you to get major savagery in this build. But yeah, back to the point. You have a lot of regen in this build, but because you don't have a sustain skill, and because you use a lot of stam abilities, sustain might feel rough. But the way I adapted to that is it's by slowing down my APM. Like normally my APM is really high, and my old build, my pure soul build, could afford to sustain that because I had Dark Deal, and I was also using Blood for Blood as my spammable. For this build, you want to slow it down. You still have a lot of damage, you have a lot of burst, so even though if you slow it down, you're still going to do a lot of damage, and that would help you sustain a lot better. You should also heavy attack a lot more. In my video, in my gameplay clip, I heavy attack quite frequently for the stab sustain. But yeah, that is how it's a learn to play issue on my part when I had trouble sustaining. But when I adapted to it, it felt fine. But if you still have trouble sustaining, you can go Serpent. With Serpent, you should have 2.9k regen. That should be enough to sustain. So yeah, this is the build. Let me know what you guys think, and I hope it works for you, just as it worked for me. So I'll see you guys next one. Peace.